is TrueNorthTV, powered by Communitech. From Waterloo Region, Ontario, Canada, to the world. The conversations you need and want to hear from interesting people on topics at the intersection of technology and humanity. Tech for good. Let's get started.
Thanks, Talia. Hello, and welcome to another episode of True North TV. I'm Ian Klugman, your host for today. If there was ever a year when the world needed an action hero, it's 2020. Now, Kumail Nanjiani might not be an action hero in real life, but he's about to play one in an upcoming movie. And at this point in time, we'll take it. It would be an understatement to say I'm thrilled to have Kumail join us on True North TV today. From his role as Dinesh on HBO's Emmy Award-winning series Silicon Valley, to the Academy Award-nominated screenplay he co-wrote with his wife Emily Gordon for The Big Sick, to his role in the upcoming Marvel superhero film Eternals. Kumail is the right person at the right time to talk to about the issues we care about here on True North TV, tech for good, the global pandemic, and how we can all get through these crazy times together. Kumail Nanjiani, welcome to True North TV. It's so great to have you join us today. But I mean, first things first, what's with those biceps? Like, what the hell, man?
Listen, I was doing this movie that was supposed to come out like a month ago now. And I was like going to be the first like Pakistani superhero, right? In a Marvel movie. So I was like, oh, I have to like represent, I can't be the first schlubby superhero. I wanted to look like someone who could like hang with Captain America and Thor and everybody, So I was like, okay, I'm gonna see as close to Thor or Captain America as I can get. And I didn't quite get there. But I did, I was very proud of how far I did get. And I've honestly kept it up in quarantine, because there's really nothing else to do. So I've really been like continuing that, trying to keep it up as best I can.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, I'm a gym rat, always have been, and I really do think that it helps in so many ways. Just being strong and being fit in all aspects of your life. Now, I'm 60. And it doesn't get any easier, I got to tell you that. But congratulations, that's a huge achievement. Now, you transformed yourself from a mild-mannered software engineer in the Silicon Valley. You co-wrote and you starred in The Big Sick, which I loved as a movie. Strikes me that you might be precisely the person we need to hear from about tech for good in the midst of a global pandemic and the wake of a chaotic U.S. election. What's your plan to change the world and save the world?
I don't know if I'm the right guy to talk to about this, but I do know, I was on a show called Silicon Valley for many years. And the thing that really, really struck me about it was we would go and we would sort of we would get to visit all these tech companies and meet CEOs and all this. And they were all very excited to meet us and show off their products. And some of these products, immediately we were like, oh, wow, there are ethical concerns about this new technology. I mean, technology is moving so fast. There's no way that our legislation can keep up. And so we would ask these people, we would say, what about this issue, this issue? And they didn't even have answers prepared for it. They were surprised that they were being asked the question. So I think, one of the biggest threats first of all, I think, there are a lot of things that are currently sort of threatening our survival as a people, as a civilization, as a species. I don't want to I don't want to be a bummer. I'm a very optimistic person, but I do think Silicon Valley views technology as amoral. They don't think of tech as being good or bad. They think of it as like, oh, it's the people that are good or bad that use it. I do think it's very important for people developing tech to keep those considerations in mind, to think of the bad ways in which their technology can be used. So I think going forward, I think ethics in technology is one of the main issues we really, really need to focus on. Sometimes I'll watch these hearings they'll have in the US with tech CEOs and stuff, and the people who are asking the questions are so clueless about technology. They're from many generations above us, and that's what really scares me. I just want there to be. I think ethics in technology is one of the big concerns facing us right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And of course, the big event that we run called True North Festival, which of course now we had to turn into True North TV due to COVID, as I like to say, due to COVID. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The fact that there hasn't been accountability for not just can people build stuff, but should they build it? And do you think that there's going to be a change in this? Do you think that people are awakening to the fact that we need to hold these large tech giants to account?
I think the change in administration in the US hopefully will help. I've heard some talk of them getting people in specifically to sort of bring the tech sector under control a little bit. I think the issue is some of these companies have gotten so big and so powerful, and our antitrust laws have become so lax that you have these massive corporations, and they really become like governments on their own. It becomes really hard to control them when there's that much money and power at stake. So I do have hope that with this new administration, hopefully some more checks will be put in place, because what we have learned over the last few years is you cannot count on these companies to keep themselves in check. I've read so many stories about, obviously, one of the big issues in the US that really was highlighted during the election was this idea of fake news, right? This idea that because, anybody can publish anything, it really is up to these tech companies to sort of be able to sort out what they should promote and what they should not promote, and how much they should, what kind of warnings and tags they should put on these stories. So it's become a really, really complicated thing. I really hope that we can have some sort of objectivity with this, because it seems like the people who seem to be complaining the most are the ones who actually are being serviced by these companies, who are actually gaining an advantage because of these companies. So I have hope. I mean, I have to have hope that, we'll get some people in government who will understand what's at stake and who will understand the technology behind it. And that hopefully we can put some regulations in place that will allow, that will force these companies to be more thoughtful about how the technology is used.
Exactly, and we're excited to see the new administration, the president-elect and the vice president-elect coming into office. Of course, there's a special connection between Vice President-elect Harris and Canada. She moved to Canada with her sister and her mother, and grew up in Montreal, went to high school here, and then, of course, when she was done high school, she returned back to the U.S. But so we kind of consider her as an honorary Canadian at this point in time, and we have great hope and great promise for her in that role, and for President-elect Biden as well.
Yeah, I did not know that about her. I've actually spent some time in Montreal and Toronto. I have a lot of family in Toronto. I've shot a bunch of stuff in Vancouver, and we've had sort of an interesting few years here. And me and my friends always talk about it. Like, Canada is so close, and they're like, it seems like heaven compared to us. I mean, we've sort of politicized things that have no business being politicized. So it's been good to have you guys there as sort of a, in a way, kind of a true north to really see like how things could have been, or how things could be in the future.
Well, we'd love to. We've got this thing called Global Talent Stream. It's the most competitive visa in the world as far as bringing top talent in. What would it take to get you to move to Canada?
Honestly, not very much. I love it there, and it's honestly, man. I know that the entire world has been following the U.S. election. I have friends in like Australia and the UK and in Pakistan, and they're like, we talk about it as much as you guys talk about it. So these last few years have been so stressful, and you sort of have this. You feel on one side, you feel somewhat of a responsibility to do what you can to sort of help things where you are, to help things in your home. But then on the other hand, it also starts to take a toll on you. And sometimes you want to be like, I just want to go to a place where I don't feel this like heavy weight anymore. You know, a couple of years ago, my wife and I flew to another country for work. And as soon as we got off the plane, we suddenly felt lighter. We were like, wow, it's all this weight, this intensity that we've been carrying now for 4 years. It starts to really, really wear on you. So honestly, going to Canada seems pretty fantastic right now.
I think we've all been watching and looking in from the outside, but what's it been like living in America in 2020?
Um, I first of all, I want to say I do speak from a place of tremendous privilege. I have a wonderful wife. I have a wonderful home. I'm able to work from home to some degree. We have a house. Um, and a lot of people are going through this pandemic in a much more disadvantaged position than we are. We are very, very lucky. That said, it's been very frustrating. It's been very challenging. My wife is in a very high risk group for this pandemic, and so I've been following sort of when it started showing up in Wuhan. I've been following it since then because we don't have the luxury of being able to ignore something like this. And so from the beginning, I've been following it, and I figured, okay, I know I have a lot of issues with the administration, but this is a very, very basic thing that we can all get behind, which is viruses are bad. You would think pandemic is bad. You'd think that that's something that we could all agree on. And so it's been really, really, really frustrating watching there being no sort of coordinated response to this. There's been no consistent messaging on what's safe, what isn't. I still get into arguments with people who say that wearing masks does nothing, when, if anything, what we've learned in the last few months is that masks are way more, that they work way more than we thought they would. So it's been really, really frustrating, and watching it get politicized. The idea that guidelines, there's a political side that thinks guidelines are bad. There's a political side that thinks mask wearing is bad. There's a political side that thinks social distancing is bad, and it's really become, I've watched in the last few months this division, this line between the two sides on something as scientifically valid as our response to this virus. I've seen it become so politicized. So it's been really frustrating to sort of live through it and see things get worse and worse and worse, when we know that if we were really, really good for 3 weeks, we could be in a pretty good place. Listen, now it's the winter, and I know there were spikes happening all over the world, but the number of lives we have lost here, it's no other place compares. And there is a sense of normalcy to some other places. Obviously, nobody's fully back to normal, but there's a sense of normalcy in places that does not exist anywhere in America right now. So it's these walls, this is what I do every day. I've sort of been inside, and earlier I thought, like, okay, we could have some semblance of normalcy, but seeing our response being as scattershot as it has been, I realized, like, okay, we are basically in this until there's a pandemic. You sort of find yourself like renewing your vows with the pandemic the way you would with someone you've been married to for 30 years. So it's been frustrating, but I do feel there's a light at the end of the tunnel now.
Yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We got 3 vaccines that are ready to roll, and of course in the United Kingdom they're going to start vaccinating people on Monday.
Wow, Monday!
So the light is at the end of the tunnel, and I think that between improvements in testing that's going to also be rolling, the saliva-based antigen-based testing, and the vaccines coming online, we can, if we to your point, if we are serious about finding a way to cohabitate with this thing, and if we think about the fact there's a new social contract out there that says, I'm not wearing a mask to protect me. I'm not getting vaccinated to protect me if I don't want to. I'm doing it to protect you. I'm doing it to protect my wife and my parents and my kids. And I think that's where we have to go is just getting to a point of an understanding about the shift in the need for a different kind of social contract.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the idea that, this uh, idea of not wearing masks being equated with personal freedom, I think it's so harmful and so absolutely wrongheaded. And the idea that you wouldn't do something to protect your family, to protect your neighbors, to protect your friends, to protect people you may not know, but who live around you. The idea that you would not do that because of some perceived limitation on your personal freedoms is so I can't even wrap my head around it. In Canada, has the how has it been in terms of people following the guidelines?
Well, we tend to be polite people, following rules. There is still, small protests, et cetera, around people being uncomfortable with wearing masks, and there is an anti-vaccine movement, but it's nowhere near the scale as to what's happening in America.
Here, the anti-vaccine movement is a huge percentage. The climate change denier movement is a huge percentage. The people who don't accept the results of the election is a huge percentage, and I do think so much of it really does come from misuse of very, very strong technology.
That's interesting. Can you unpack that a bit?
So I think what's happened is, when the internet was first sort of becoming ubiquitous and known, it was very exciting because I think the promise of the internet was the idea that you would have access to people that you would not have access to, that you would be able to have conversations with people who would be physically very far away from you, and you could see other perspectives, other points of views, that you could share your experiences and have other people share their experiences with you. The idea that really the world would get smaller and that your perspective would get bigger. What has happened instead is people are finding these little spaces where they just find the people who agree with them. So if say you're a white supremacist, right? You can go to a website where now there are thousands of people who exactly agree with you, with your awful racist um, point of view, right? And so I think that gets reinforced more and more. And now you have these news outlets that are specifically catering towards a certain point of view, towards selling a certain type of way of looking at the world, not even looking at the world. They have different facts, right? I mean, this is the issue we have with like Facebook, right? If you look at their top 10 stories in any given day, most of them are full of facts that are very easily debunked. So I think that's what's happened is instead of people talking to each other, we now sort of go into these little spaces on the internet where our ideas just get reinforced and the other side and other ideas get demonized, and people genuinely have different realities that they live in. I feel like, if you look at the internet, I feel like we made this thing that ended up being much more powerful than us. And now it's sort of reflecting back onto us. There was a certain way, this is maybe a digression. It is a digression. But I used to host a podcast about the X Files, which is my favorite show of all time. And I used to go and find old message boards because X Files was the one that was considered to have the first like internet fan base, right? So I started finding message boards from like 94, 95, and back then mostly universities had them. So the people talking to them were college students and mostly professors. And the level of discourse was so high, and the level of politeness, as you say, was so high. The conversation was a real conversation. And as the show progressed, I saw that conversation change. As the sort of internet spread, I saw the way we spoke on the internet change. And I think the anonymity of the internet in the beginning allowed you to feel like you wouldn't have any consequences for what you said. And now that anonymity of the internet, which allowed us to sort of become the worst version of ourselves, is now reflecting back into the real world. So the way that people talk on the internet, now they talk in real life. Now they'll say that to your face. So, and the changes happen so quickly. So to me, this idea of denying basic facts, denying basic scientific truths, it really comes down to um, misuse of technology in that way, where people are basically writing news stories just to get views because they know that they'll get views, and that the fact that their ideas are not verifiable, uh, that will not be challenged.
I can't help but think the way you've sort of articulated this argument, which was beautiful. Marshall McLuhan must be just spinning in his grave. The time that were meant to have you and the scheduling got mixed up, or you were shooting a movie at the time. We had Tim Berners-Lee come, and Tim, of course, was the father of HTML, often credited as being the father of the internet, and he came and he spoke about the fact that they had that same vision. There was very much technology was romanticized, and Marshall McLuhan was very much part of those visions as well. And Tim's leading a new effort right now to try and fix the internet. He feels like his baby turned out to be Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the rise of the internet was the promise of the return of voice, right? No matter where you are, you would have a voice. What's happened is truth has become democratized. If enough people believe it, it becomes the truth. Well, it doesn't really, but for all intents and purposes. So there are people who really believe, like, before, I think the pandemic has really brought this into focus in a way that it had not been before. But before this, I thought climate change posed the biggest existential. I mean, it still does poses the biggest existential threat to our survival on this planet, right? Well, enough people believe that it is not happening, in the sense that our policies, at least the last 4 years, we left the Paris Accord. I mean, our policies create the reality that it is not happening. That's tremendously harmful, because that's the one thing we can't fight against. We can't fight facts. We can't fight science. We can't, which is why I thought, I really thought that this virus would be the thing that everybody would believe, because you see people getting sick, you see people dying, you see it spread. I was like, there's no way they can deny the existence, the reality of this, and here we are.
Here we are, people saying it's a hoax. It's unbelievable. Um, Got a completely unrelated question, but The Big Sick was such a beautiful piece of work. Honestly, I think um, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Are you gonna be able to do another one? Are you gonna be able to top that? I mean, that's like up here, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things that just came together beyond our wildest dreams. I remember when we took it to Sundance, and we showed it, and it sort of got this big reaction. All the reviews were great, and it was sort of this, everybody wanted to like buy to distribute it. We went there without a distributor. And I remember Judd Apatow, who was the producer of the movie, his wife Leslie Mann, who's an amazing actress, pulled me and Emily aside, and was like, "Just so you know, it's never going to be like this again. I know it feels overwhelming. You're in a whirlwind right now, but," she was like, "enjoy this moment. Do everything you can to enjoy this, because it's never going to be like that again." So then, after all that it's over, you're exactly right. You're like, "Oh my God, what do we do next?" And then someone's advice was, don't do the second thing. Just skip to the third thing. Don't put that pressure on yourself. So Emily and I just wrote another movie that we are actually sending. We're sending it out today. So hopefully we get to make that at some point. And we just kind of decided, you know what, we did our story, and it's a type of movie that's, that sort of genre of movies are one of our favorite genres of movies. We were like, let's pick a completely different genre that's one of our favorites and do something completely different. So, so that's what we decided to do. Will it be, will it get made? I don't know. Will people like it as much as they like The Big Sick? I don't know, but it becomes hard to sort of think about that too much. I think you just have to look ahead and do the best you can, and not try and compare it to what you've done before.
You're gonna give us any clue as to what that genre might be?
Yeah, so it's we love sci-fi, so it's sort of a sci-fi movie, but not a big crazy like space sci-fi movie. It's more sort of grounded sci-fi, still relationship-based sci-fi. It's funny, hopefully. So it's still sort of the tone that we like, the tone that we do, but it's got a sci-fi element to it because we want to try and do something in every genre that we love, and this was an idea that we had a couple of years ago that we sort of like kept kicking around, and then in quarantine, suddenly we couldn't leave the house, and we were like, all right, well, let's write it. So we started writing it in March.
With everything you've done, you started out as a comic, and then of course you ended up on TV with a remarkable show. You seem to like to surprise people. I mean, the whole moving from The Big Sick to a Marvel movie, is this a thing you just like to surprise people, or is this just who you are?
No, I just try and do stuff I'm excited about, try and do stuff that I'm passionate about. And I look at, I've been a fan of movies and TV shows my whole life, like a fanatic, and I just try and do stuff that excites me, stuff that I would like to watch. So The Big Sick was definitely, it was a lot of pressure because we were like, we're very lucky that we get a chance to make this, to tell our story. We may never get a chance again, so let's do the best we can. So every like job I take, I sort of assume like, what if this is the last job I take? I want to be able to only do things that I'm very passionate about, that really really excite me. And with the Marvel movie, with Eternals, I made a very specific decision. So I'd gotten to, as you said, I'd gotten to play nerds and stuff, and I love doing that. But I was like, I also love action movies. What's limiting me? What's limiting me is the way I look. I'm pretty scrawny. Like, I don't look like I could like kick anybody's butt. So I made a conscious decision to like change the way I look, because I figured that then that would give me access to different opportunities that I wouldn't have as a 145-pound guy.
You, of course, have had all this success. How do you stay grounded and humble? Or maybe you're not, but let's pretend you are.
No, let's pretend I am. Massive insecurity. Does that work? I just feel, I don't. Emily says this. She's like, you never enjoy anytime anything goes well. You're always like thinking about the next thing. So I do have that sort of fear. I've seen people in this business, they get a shot and then that window closes, right? So I'm very aware of the fact that I have an opportunity right now. I get to do the kind of stuff I want to do. I'm also very aware of the fact that the window can close. It closes for people much more talented than myself all the time. So I consider myself very lucky, and I think it's just fear. You just want to like do the best you can with the opportunities that you have, and so uh, I don't ever really. I don't. I think that's the one thing that it probably keeps me grounded, but it also is. It has some other less positive side effects. Is that I don't really enjoy things when they go well. I remember, I started doing stand up, as you said. I started off doing stand up comedy. And for years, my goal was to get on David Letterman's show, right? Late night with David Letterman, or Late Show, whatever it was called. I'd watched like that. He was part of the reason I started doing stand up. And it took me years to like get there. And I worked with his producer for a year on a set. And I finally got it perfect. And I went on the show and I did it and it went well. As soon as it was over, I was like, all right, how do I get to do this again? Like, I didn't even take a moment to enjoy it. It suddenly became the pressure of like, all right, got to find the next 5 minutes that I can do here. So that's an issue. But honestly, the pandemic has helped me sort of sit with myself a bit more. I feel like sometimes I'm always like running to the next thing too much. It's allowed me to be in the moment a little bit more, and I don't think you can help but stay grounded because there are cautionary tales all around you all the time. And I've been on sets with people who are mean to crew, and it sucks. You know, we're all here doing the same thing. It's a beautiful thing getting to make a movie or a TV show. There's like 100, 200 people all building something together. I mean, that's very, very exciting. My people ask me for advice about acting, and I'm like, I only have two pieces of advice really. It's like never be late and be nice to everyone. That's it.
Well, listen, thank you so much, and that is great advice. I wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for joining us today on True North TV. I wish you all the best, and I really look forward to the next surprise that you bring to the world.
Oh, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Well, one day when we're through the pandemic and the other side, we would still love to have you come to Canada and spend some time with us. We're big fans, and we look forward to this next piece.
Yeah, I would love to come visit when I'm there.
That would be fantastic. Anyway, thanks again for making time today.
Thank you for talking to me.
And thank you all for joining us today on True North TV. We look forward to seeing you next year. This is the last episode of this year. We look forward to seeing you next year, same date and time. Thanks.
Thanks for watching this episode of True North TV. To catch the next episode, subscribe to Communitech's channel.